Hello and welcome to this webinar titled The Journey to Lean Implementation for Efficiency Increase, hosted by Biopharma Asia magazine and presented by Uwe Voelker, Site Head of Sterile Drug Product Manufacturing at Roche. My name is Stephen Edwards and I'll be your moderator. Before we begin, I would just like to inform our viewers that there will be a live Q&A session after the end of the presentation, near the end of the webinar. Audience members can send their questions in at any time during the webinar via the Questions tab located directly below your webinar screen, and we will go through these at the end of the webinar. Now please allow me to introduce our presenter. Uwe Voelker is currently Site Head at Roche in Mannheim, leading Pharma Operations, the Biologics DP site. He was previously in VP roles in both Quality and Technology Operations, local and global roles, Head of Global Quality Small Molecules, Site Head in Biologics DP site in Switzerland. Uwe is well versed in all aspects of quality management, lean, operational, excellence, and change management. I will now be handing over to our first presenter. Welcome, Uwe.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to have a webinar with you to talk about my passion on lean and to share with you what that meant for us in our site when we implemented lean principles and where we are on the journey. I want to start with a disclaimer that is that I'm not a lean guru, so don't expect a deeper lean training seminar. This is really sharing the experience, but I really want to offer everyone who is on a journey to strive for more efficiency to find out what that meant. And I consider myself someone who is like a converted from an original early skeptical person that converted into someone who is now pretty passionate after a roughly 3 years journey. So I'm going to talk to you about the journey to lean implementation, what is lean and what is lean production system. And let me tell you as the first one, someone is always asking, why should we do something different? And this is a key item. When you go on a lean implementation, you don't do that in a project mode. Something starts and something ends, but you rather do it because you are convinced there is a new way of working that you want to implement. And this new way of working means we have several reasons why we need to do this. Roche, as a big pharma global player, had been and is continuing to do very, very well from an economical side. So there was on technical operations, that's where I'm a part of, not a real big pressure to look for costs or for efficiencies. We have big blockbuster products and they're running well, but everything we did was to keep that at a very good moment, operational performance high. But it was naturally then that we reached a point when the environment has changed. And then we then said, well, what can we do to really see why we need to do something and why we need to change? And this slide asks that questions, why are we doing this? So at Roche, it's in many companies, the patient is always absolutely and at the center. And we want to continue to ensure the availability of our drug products to these patients. The second business is obviously we are a shareholder company, so we want to support our business, our strategy, and continuing the growth of our Roche Pharma so that we really add value to our shareholders. We have developed our own strategic journey, which means we want to get a sustainable productivity and agility. I think these are buzzwords that you are all well known. And of course, a key lever to make that all happen is our people. And this at the end was when we looked at all these principles that we said, if we can do better than empowering our people that may already have a certain mindset for continuous improvement, but what could that look like if we had to apply something different, enabling our people to do even a better work, more efficient, and be satisfied with what they're doing? So that led us to choose a system called Lean Production System. But at the end of the day, this is just an operating model where you have several elements and methods that you want to implement and make sure that you do that well and consistently. And this is why it's not a project in itself, but you want to change the way of working long term. And now, when some of you will start reading through those elements, I'm sure you will say, well, some of this we already do. That was my immediate reaction. When I first saw what the third party that we are using presented, we say, of course we are people focused, and of course we are doing things like a 5S, or we have shared some experiences about our zero defect opportunities. All that was there. And depending where you are starting, some of you may say, well, this is old school stuff. We already have implemented that. And then I apologize. For us, roughly 3 years ago, we had several of those elements, but not as a holistic approach that we wanted to use for midterm changing the way we work really substantially. And I just tick on and explain some of those. I think the most relevant one is at the left upper corner. This is about lean leadership. I can fairly say that when you are in that journey, the way how you lead people will substantially change. And I will go to tackle that much more in detail. And then it's about people and organizations. The question is, how do you prepare your daily agenda? How have you set up meetings? What are those organizational elements that support that? Those items seem to be trivial, but when you look deeper, they are not at all. And then comes this daily rhythm and schedule. This is the question, are you sure that your meetings are structured, that they have a high efficient outcome? I'm happy to share that in our site or in our organization years ago, most of the leaders were overwhelmed by the number of meetings they need to attend. And when you ask yourself, well, why is that? It was because there was a certain mindset that people need to be there if they want to be important, or there was a request for senior leaders to attend many, many meetings so that they are really getting an efficient decision. I will come to that also later. Then we had standard work, and this is the one that triggers a lot of reaction when you see standardization, at least in Europe, for most of the people, is a negatively biased word, because everybody feels I need to give up something of my own individuality, and they don't look something positive for a standard. But when you consider standardization, is we all agree on what is the best current practice, then it is much more easy to say, hey, great, let's agree on what we all see the best practice, define it as a new standard, and improve from there. And that can be applicable to anything you can imagine. This can be meetings, this can be structured processes, this can be manufacturing processes, this can be IT systems, whatsoever. But if you are in that journey to standardization and see that this is something positive, that will really change the way how you look at a standard and a standard work. And then we have level flow. I think this is all about what do you know about your process steps and about the flow of your processes within the site or within an organization. We have equipment availability. I think that is most familiar for most in terms of OEE, overall equipment efficiency, or how you utilize, maximize the capacity utilization of your equipment. Then we have zero defect, which basically most of the people relate to quality, like right first time, but it's also a zero defect in anything you do. It can also be applicable in an office environment. And it is overall an improvement culture, a continuous improvement mindset. That is, you never give up to really improve the way you work, and you have here a lot of methods. So what you see on this screen is it needs to be a structured approach. It has elements and methods. They may vary in title, but the essentials is if you pick only one or two of them, you will soon realize that you don't make the big move. You may be successful in some of those, but you really don't go the big shot. So that's why we decided, well, high level, what we really want to achieve by going that lean journey. And lean, as the word says, it's all about waste, and we want to reduce waste across the entire value chain. And so what does it mean in technical operations? We definitely want to reduce our high complexity. This was happening over many years, that we have driven processes where today, if you map them, you would say, well, Jesus, how crazy is that and how complex? We want to definitely reduce the time we need for individual process steps. This can be an orderly time. This can be a time for an individual manufacturing step or a quality control step. And also, we definitely want to reduce the variability that we have. And here, where many of you are familiar with Lean Six Sigma, so we are using black belts or green belts to do a variability reduction. So this is what's already happening. But if we do that in a consistent, holistic manner, the outcome is really that we will even further improve our compliance and our quality features. Very important, we will have a more satisfying work. This is really key because the people, your staff, will only buy into that if they understand what's in for me. From the company point of view, also very essential is that we will do that also to have a higher cost efficiency. That means we will lower our cost and have, as we are a supply-focused organization, we will also reduce lead times. And at the end, as a consequence, either reduce our inventories or have a sustainable supply chain in place. So it's all about focus on waste, but not just in one or two elements, really the whole thing. And that's why I added this orange circle, which I'm going to show you in the next slide. And then comes a very important thing. It only helps to get you successful if you apply all those concepts with a true rigor and a discipline globally. And to make you understand what that means, PT, the Technical Operations at Roche, is an organization of roughly 14,000 people across the globe. And we tried previously, prior to that, several improvement projects. But one thing that very often they were challenged with was that we didn't really do that consistently, sustainably enough. And second was that always some areas sneaked out. So that means they were different departments, other sites, and then you were missing the real big win. And we said in this, the discipline, so it's not am I in, and if I'm not in, it's good. So, but it's a mandatory thing. But the key item is you want to explore that discipline and rigor by convincing people that this is the right thing to do. So on the next slide, let me just tip on some of those items to explain what waste is about, because that's so essential. And imagine yourself, you go to work, and I'm sure every day you have this moment where you feel, the way I'm doing my work, I need to lean back and say, is that really the best way how I'm doing it? And most of these moments, if you think back, you have identified something that we call waste. Either you need to wait like endless because in a meeting not everybody is punctual, or you are just excited because you spend 1 hour in a meeting and you feel there is not a real decision made, or you are in an operative environment, your QC testing has been done all, but then you know that the results are not needed at this time because the batch is still under QA review, all those sorts of things. And they are covered in what we call waiting times. So if you map a process and you find that there is too much of a product at the end that you want to ship out the door as a finished product and you have too many waiting time in between, then this is not good. You can even go explain that more for your people if you do what we call a spaghetti diagram, just in a, for example, in a production or warehouse or QC lab, where you just track how people physically move. And I like to use that example, if you have a QC lab and all the equipment that's essential to do a test is in one different building around the corner, then you will most likely waste a lot of time and energy just to walk there. But are you aware of it? Have you identified that? And the other piece is inventory. Many people have built up inventory because their processes are not really fast and lean. And the consequence of a supply person is always, okay, if I can't be sure that this is working like clockwork, I want to build up inventory at a certain process step or supply chain step because I want to be on the safe side. Those are all natural things happening if you don't focus. And for us as a classical pharma, defects is also something really where I'm excited about. If you compare our defect rate and compare it like with benchmarks like in automotive or in semiconductor, then we are still by far not where we should be. Some of those other industries operate their manufacturing or their overall processes in a Six Sigma environment. And I can frankly say, at least in our company, we are not at all in a Six Sigma. We have by far too many discrepancies happening that later on we are proud to deal professionally with and compliant, that's for sure. However, having said, if you think about how much time goes into do that, that is truly a waste. Because if your process would just work smoothly, you would not need to use that time. My apologies, I don't want to go through all of those individual buckets here, but I think it's all about that waste and where it's coming from, to be really aware and not just have the gut feel about it. And now, when someone asks me, well, you can all learn those methods. They're publicly out. You can go for Lean Six Sigma courses. You can learn how to do a Kaizen. That is correct. That's all the methods. So the biggest thing that my experience is that you need to overcome is that people have their own mindset, how to deal with the way they're working today. Very much of that is driven by the company culture. And obviously this varies from companies to companies, also from regions to regions. But another big and important thing is the leadership principles. And that's why I want to say the most difficult, at least for us as a European-based company, was and still is to really get through that new way of working as a leader from what we called a traditional leadership in a classical pyramidal organization structure. This is the left side. I'm a leader, and I'm the one who's telling people what to do because I'm technically the best. I set targets. I solve all the problems. If they happen, people come to approach me because they feel that I'm the best person to make this call, to come with the decisions, and to tell exactly the people what to do. At least I'm 30 years in the business. That's how I was recruited. I'm a PhD pharmacist, and my first job was to run a QC lab because everybody felt I should know better than everybody else. Fair enough at that time. Today, I would say totally outdated, because where we want to go for, and that is Lean is supporting, if not demanding, is what we call a servant leadership. And the word servant may be misunderstood. That's why I'm happy to explain. It is very much that together as a complete team or a working cell or whatever you may call it, we will deliver the results. And it's not just me as a leader who knows it all better, but I enable my whole team to contribute and to be successful. So we use the term thinking about 14,000 people and not just about 500 or 1,000 are really the problem solvers, but 14,000 are problem solvers. So the new task of a leader is much more to be a role model, also apply really rigorously the learning and doing things, and enable and coach the team. That, as such, has proven to be the biggest challenge, and I use myself when you're paid and your performance is evaluated based on the left traditional leadership, to change that is really hard. It's hard work. And it starts with yourself, that you really need to understand that there is something for you to learn. And I show you now, and don't look, this slide is not meant to show you that you need to read what that board is, but it's just, you will see the daily huddle board of my site leadership team. And what I want to demonstrate with that is to show you that myself and my leadership team, we are on a journey. So this is how we started. We knew a daily huddle is important. So we role modeled it. We took a whiteboard and we just started to put all those things that we think are relevant to be discussed on a day-to-day basis to run the site efficiently. You will see, and maybe it's hard to see, that this is all structured under a so-called SKU deck. So safety, quality, delivery, engagement, and costs are the main categories. And then we started by learning just to put, what do we think we need to talk every day? And I want to use that. This, you see, this was in 17. And the first reaction of my team was, we don't need that. I can't afford 15 minutes every day because we are spread across many buildings. And the intuitive reaction was, that's a waste. If we have to do it, we don't believe in it. So we said, okay, give it a try because we want a role model. We expect our teams to do so. Let's give it a try. And then this is how it looks roughly 1 year later. So you will find that there is much more structure. It's hard to see, but you have much more visual target achievements, red or green. And all these yellow post-its, those are concrete actions that we give ourselves with a priority and an action owner and a due date. And we look at this every day. And it's very sharp, 15 minutes, not more, not 16, 15 minutes. And to tell you the truth, if I ask my leadership team, hey guys, would you want to skip that? They would say, are you crazy? Because this everyday 15 minutes has saved us so much individual calls or operational topics to be discussed in our leadership team meeting, the regular meetings once per week, that we have saved so much and have a much more operationally and outcome-focused life. If I took a photo of today, again, it has changed because we are on an ongoing learning curve, and the target is how can we optimize it. And this is a very concrete example. Again, I'm not supposed to give you all numbers and figures, but it is just we are a manufacturing site of vials and syringes and all sterile products you can imagine. And we have one module, as we call it, when we said, well, we are not happy with the way how we get discrepancies under control, deviations. And so we implemented a very structured method. And this was called TrackWise Huddle because TrackWise is the tool that we're using. And so the myth is here, we meet on a regular basis daily with a team. And they're very focused. They get the online data about where we are and what concrete actions they're going to do. And that was all based on a Kaizen as another tool because they identified if we don't pull the people together, we are just going to lose time. And that covered several elements like quality, delivery, and engagement. So the people are rather happy because now they have all the data together, and we have improved our discrepancies, on-time closure rate. That was years ago already, but that was already 15% within a very short time. So if you ask myself, what have you achieved so far? Is it worthwhile to go on that journey? And I can clearly say that our discrepancy rate has really tremendously improved. We are still not where we want to be, but it has improved substantially. The other piece is that it has not been improved just for the sake of meeting and hitting one single KPI, but at the same time we were also looking how long does it take us to close the discrepancy? Is it really a waste in energy, or what's the ultimate contribution to our success of the whole site? The second bullet point is even more important. Our people were rather skeptical because they felt that they're doing a good job today. and they didn't see the need to really why this is going to help them. And today we have regular-based so-called global employee surveys, and the engagement score has really increased. And one of the contributors was our lean approach. And then very concretely speaking, lead times, cycle times to meet customer demands is something important. So both our drug product and our finished goods order lead time has been substantially reduced. And consequently, if you take all this, even though it was not a primary target started with, we have contributed quite a lot to our reduced cost of goods. So where are those lessons learned? What would you do different? Because again, it's a journey. If you ask myself, are you done? The answer is no, by far not. We are nearly 3 years into it, but I've spoken to peers. They do that since many years, and they still have to improve. And I, for example, visited an automotive company last week, and again, they are in the journey since 15, 20 years, and they are not done. Huh? So the key lessons learned, at least from our angle, and again, you may have different ones, but for us it was important, do we all have a mindset for continuous improvement? However you may call that, but this is a real important thing. If your change management approach is not tackling that, understanding that the cultures can vary from company to company or from region to region, you will have a hard time. Communication to explain the why and to really understand what is needed to really give good examples, share best practice, that's also essential. I say it more provocatively, tools and methods can be trained in an onboarding phase, but to really apply it in a consistently manner, in a can-do manner, that is really difficult. We did a massive onboarding training, but then we had people who heard that, understood it at a time, but then had to apply it concretely only 9 months later, and you can see that their interest level is dropped and they just don't know what that original training was all about. So what I keep on telling, if you go that direction, it's a journey, it's not a project. If senior management expects quick wins, some of them are there, but it's even more relevant to really look at the long-term sustainable improvement. And I think if someone comes in as a consultant or as a third party, don't believe in the immediate quick wins unless you start from a very low point. But still, does it mean that you should do it? Absolutely, because you will change the way how you work and you will create value. And the biggest challenge, again, is the leadership behavioral change, and this includes myself, especially in a European culture setup that used to be hierarchically driven and technically, scientifically dominated. This is really the biggest hurdle, to approach what you were telling people now to a coaching style, and to really be humble and demonstrate as someone who's willing to learn every day. And before I stop, I want to give that concrete example, but the one that was the most telling from me in my lean leadership, that was what I call leader standard work. So as a leader, I always did something like a time management check. I attended courses. And when I first said, well, I need to fill in something in a template where I can check myself, how am I performing, I felt that this is, again, overdoing it. That was the initial reaction. Then someone gave me an example who had done that since years, and I looked at this. It's basically a piece of sheet that he or she looks every day, and I find it stunning. Because the difference is you write down what's relevant for you to achieve what you intend to do. It could be that you want to revise your agenda of daily meetings. It could be that you want to connect more time with your people other than in meetings. It could be that I want to do 2 Gembas per day. But that meant if I have this intent, I must free up the time for it. It's not a should. I must free up the time. So my all-time favorite, having the culture that we had, I found myself in 11 steering committees as sponsor because the perception was, well, it can only be an important project if the site head is automatically leading the project, not as a lead, but as a sponsor, and automatically this was that this person is the steering committee lead. Well, if you write that down, how much time it takes to do these steering committees, to get yourself prepared, check in with the project lead, you will find that this is not the best way to run your daily work. Maybe you say, well, I don't have someone capable to do it, but then you should ask yourself, why is that? And all those elements, you write them down in a piece of paper or on a computer, and you check now and apply the discipline to check in day by day. And trust me, being skeptical at the beginning, this was so powerful because I was only done by myself and hold with myself, but I found myself that I had a lot in mind, but I failed to achieve it. And only when I started to change gears and saying, well, maybe I need to really radically drop something and do something different, then the whole leader standard work document changed. And now I can say that this was one of the key levers for me. And now I'm sharing that, not only doing it for myself, I'm sharing it with my team and I share it with others so that they know what I'm learning and that I know what I'm doing different. And again, a big, simple thing, you can start with a piece of paper, but the key is, am I willing to do so? So this is my last slide, and it just illustrates what the Roche logo is. And we have this motto that we want to be an innovative company, but we do now what patients need next. And I can say, to wrap it up, that this lean implementation was and is an eye-opener. Yes, it can be done, that you achieve different ways of results. There is a lot of effort needed into it, but it's definitely worthwhile. And I really want to get yourself out to say, it starts with yourself. Am I ready from my mind? And is my site or my organization ready? Because I can see that they are open for change to do something more efficiently. If those questions are always, well, you yourself, you're ready for it, and second, your organization is ready for it, then I can only strongly recommend to go on that journey. With that, I want to close the meeting. Thanks, everyone, for listening so much, and now I'm really eager to get your questions that I'm happy to answer.
Thank you for that presentation, Dr. Voelker. As you just mentioned, we will begin the question and answer session. But once again, I would like to remind the audience that you can still send your questions in via the questions tab located directly below your webinar screen. So now our first question is, what was triggering your lean journey?
Thanks for the question. So as I tried to explain, it was very much driven by the organization doing well, but with a lot of potential to further improve, especially when it came to efficiency and to enable a timely supply to patients. To be fair, at Roche as a company, we are the world market leader in oncology, and we didn't have so much of a cost pressure because our margins were super high. And then, as you all know, biosimilars came, and we totally respect them, but they triggered us to look much more into cost of goods and also efficiency. So all those outside factors were giving us a time where we said, well, are we happy with our employee satisfaction? The answer was not to the extent we want. Do we do enough to provide our innovative drugs to our patients in a real fast time? The answer was, well, it's okay, but it could be better. And the third one was, and do we really satisfy the needs of what we see upcoming, which means either biosimilar competition or new technologies? And how can we do that if we don't engage our people more to be, at the end, contributing to the success and being problem solvers? That was basically triggering the start of it.
Thank you. Our next question is, how did you choose lean as a method of choice?
That is by benchmarking First of all, we always had done different methods in the past. So we were on a business process management class A journey, for those who may be familiar with that. We had done other projects, all with the targets to either increase efficiency. And when we benchmarked, then we found out that basically it's not only within pharma, but primarily in other industries, that there must be something good about that lean if like automotive or semiconductor or others, big industries have applied it for so long. And then we were basically sending out scouts and also did benchmark via consultants, and we found out that there is a lot of things that lean provides that we think would help our problem statement. And that's why we found out also by benchmarking with peer companies, and that's why we said lean is the way. And again, we are not very innovative in that. Other pharma companies, and I'm sure some of you are on the phone, you have started with it much earlier. And so by benchmarking, that's the key. We defined lean as the way to go.
Thank you. Our next question is, did you work with a third party?
Yes. And I think if someone asked me, would you always want to go with a consultant or third party? I would say that really depends on where you are as an organization, whether you need it or whether you don't need it. In other words, us being a global company, and we knew it needs to be a top-down mandated thing, we wanted to assure standardization as a key item, and we knew that we are not standardized across the globe enough. This is one of the reasons why we picked the third party to provide us the framework. It starts with the definitions, the glossary, and really make sure that the process applied from a start of design phase is then consistently deployed. That was the reason why we said we want to do that with the third party. If I were in a smaller size company and I would have already a strong continuous improvement teams where they know about most of these methods, I'm not sure that then a big third party is needed. But that depends on the maturity level that you want to set it. And this is, you first have to look inwards. Where are we? How big is the organization? How much mature are we on some of those methods? Do we know enough about it?
Thank you. One more question. We have, how can we increase leadership support and involvement of this lean journey?
I think this is the most important question, and thanks for asking, because as I pointed out, it doesn't work if you tell your people, your leaders, you must do that, and they don't understand the why. So my general question in any of those change management things, do you understand where you are, and is that really crystal clear? And do you understand the why there is a need for change? That is specifically important with leaders, and just by mandating it, it won't help. So I can say that I spent a lot of time at the beginning to talk to my leadership team, to my extended leadership team. And again, I'm still spending time today to do that because people may be dropping off because they may have other priorities in mind. And I think this is really key. And the other piece is that you bring that as a leadership goal. So we have, for example, all our leaders have that as individual goals. So this is the incentive piece. But the other piece is that you also ask them where they are struggling with. So for example, what I'm explaining to you, we have forums where we meet leaders on a regular basis just to exchange our own difficulties we are having, be it with the leader standard work, applying the discipline, the rigor on yourself. And then we talk very concretely about it. So anything you can do to peer coach, for example, that is a very important thing. So not just talk to the boss about it, but openly share where am I stuck. All those aspects will increase the support. And the other piece is you need to be clear what's the expectation. I mean, this is what we keep on telling. There is no way out, guys. It's not a project and you can strive, sometime it's going to be over. this is a mandatory thing, but at the same time, we are going to help you, and we want to do everything that you understand that why this is important.
Thank you. And with that, that's all the questions for today. Before I finish the webinar, I would like to ask our presenter, Dr. Voelker, if you have any closing remarks for our audience.
Of course I have. And again, I want to come back how I started. My mission of this presentation was not to give you a lean basic training of what are those methods. There are others who are by far better. I want to utilize myself as an example, being somehow converted into, I firmly believe that lean is going to help very much in most of the industries, in most of the ways you can imagine. It's not the holy grail, but it is something that really can help if you have this precondition to be willing to be on a learning journey and you consider it, yes, I'm going to change the way I'm working. And I can say that it was not easy at the beginning, and I had many moments where I think, oh, this is not going to work for me. But now after 3 years, I really believe more and more that this is a great thing to do. So with that, I want to motivate everyone. Go on that journey, do it, and learn from it every day, and you will be successful. And the last point I want to make, if someone has questions that you didn't dare to ask, feel free to send an email to me. I think we can provide my email address, but it's just my first name, uwe.voelker with an OE @roche.com, and I'm happy to go in an individual contact with you.
Great.
Thanks for listening.
And I would like to take this opportunity to thank our presenter once again. It was Uwe Voelker, Site Head of Sterile Drug Product Manufacturing at Roche, for sharing his knowledge with us. I would also like to remind our audience that you can view this and other webinars on demand by visiting biopharma-asia.com/on-demand-webinars. And if you are watching this on demand, then please feel free to send your questions over to me as well at stephen.edwards@biopharma-asia.com, and we'll get those answers sent back to you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.